the bill on its second reading, which objective is to amend the Penal Code 63 by repealing Section 182, which prescribes the offense of idle and disorderly persons. The law enforcers have often used Section 182 to harass innocent members of the public. This bill does not delegate legislative powers, neither does it limit fundamental rights and freedoms of people. The bill also does not affect the functions of the county government and is therefore not a bill concerning counties for the purposes of standing orders. On traditional expenditure of public funds. In every common, the bill considers in 182 that idle and disorderly persons, every common prostitute behaving in a disorderly or indecent manner in any public place, or every person causing, procuring or encouraging any person to beg and gather alms, shall be deemed idle and disorderly persons and are guilty or misdemeanor and are liable for the first offense to imprisonment for 1 month or to a fine not exceeding 100 shillings or to both, and for every subsequent offense to imprisonment of 100 for 1 year. Also, the Parliamentary Pensions Amendment Bill of the National Assembly, that is Bill number 15 of 2023, moved by Sirisia Member of Parliament John Waluke on its first reading. The primary objective or the principal objective of the bill is to amend the Parliamentary Pensions Act, Cap 196. It proposes to raise the amount of pension due to former members of Parliament who served between 1st July in 1984 and 1st January 2001 to a minimum sum of Kenya shillings 100,000. This is in the light of the fact that despite serving the nation, some former members of Parliament are still languishing in poverty and there is need to take care of its welfare. Also, the changes are in line with the recommendations of Akiwimi Tribunal, which was appointed in January 2009 by the Parliamentary Service Commission, PSC, to review the terms and conditions of service of the members and employees of Parliament. The tribunal submitted its report to members in November 12, 2009, in which one of the recommendations was that 500 former members of Parliament to be paid for the equivalent of $1,000 each as living persons, that is equivalent to 100,000 shillings, with effect from 1st January 2010. The Parliamentary Service Commission adopted the report in June 2010 and resolved that any of the said former members earning and resolved that any of the said former 100,000 shillings to be paid monthly. The bill also provides for Amendment Section of 8 Act to provide that former members of Parliament who still serves in pension and whose monthly pensions amount to less than 100,000 shall be entitled to a monthly pension of 100,000 shillings. Now, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Gladys Boss, is already in the House to start the proceedings of today, August 2nd, the morning sitting, and I hand over to the plenary.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. direct that the division bell be rung for 10 minutes.
Having not achieved the quorum, the bell has been rung for 10 minutes to allow members of parliament who might have been in different meetings to come to the House so that the proceeding of the morning sitting of Wednesday, August 2nd starts. The members of parliament are expected to today debate the Parliamentary Pensions Amendment Bill in this first reading by John Waluke, the Member of Parliament for Sirisia constituency. The bill number 15 of 2023 that seeks to amend the Parliamentary Pensions Act that proposes to raise the amount of pension due to members of parliament who served between 1st July 1984 and 1st January 2001 to a minimum sum of Kenya shillings 100,000. This bill does not concern the county governments in terms of Article 110(1) of the Constitution, as it does not affect the functions and powers of county governments under the 4th schedule to the Constitution. Also, this bill by Member of Parliament for Sirisia constituency, Honorable John Waluke, does not delegate legislative powers, and it does not limit rights and fundamental freedoms to the Bill of Rights. Subject to the provisions of the Act, a person shall, after date of commencement, therefore, be entitled to receive a pension under this section as from time when the following conditions are fulfilled: that he has ceased to be a member of the National Assembly by reason of dissolution of Parliament, and his aggregated period of reckonable service in 2 terms of Parliament, and also has attained the age of 45. Also, members of Parliament are expected today to consider motions brought by Jane Minor, the Member of Parliament for Kirinyaga, introduction of comprehensive health education as core subjects in school. The House resolved that the national government, through the State Department of Basic Education, introduces comprehensive health, wellness and sex education in the curriculum as a core subject in schools. Public health is a fundamental responsibility of the government, and it is the imperative to address pressing health problems faced by the young people, including poor sexual and reproductive health, inadequate knowledge and information regarding sexual health and protection against sexual transmitted infections. The current state of adolescents' health training programs is inadequate and fragmented, resulting in limited access to health care information and services by the youth in the country. It's concerned that as a result of this, young people face significant barriers in accessing comprehensive health care. Cognizant that comprehensive sex education through school-based programs, community-based programs, and healthcare facilities can promote health sexual practices among its young people and reduce the spread of HIV and AIDS and other sexual transmitted infections, therefore lowering the incidences of teenage pregnancies and increasing school attendance and retention. Also, the motion on establishment of a National Cancer Prevention and Control Fund by Honorable Timothy Torotich, the Member of Parliament for Marakwet West, that the House resolve the government through the National Treasury establishes a National Cancer Prevention and Control Fund to promote prevention, control and treatment of cancer in the country. The Constitution provides for the right of every person to access the highest attainable standard of health, which includes the right to healthcare services. Cancer is among the leading causes of death in the country. Although the budgetary allocation for healthcare services is progressive, it is inadequate to cater for cancer prevention and care across the country, further noting that cancer control in the country is hampered by inadequate cancer care infrastructure and limited specified human resource capacity. Also, Brighton Yegon Konoin, Member of Parliament, has a mention on development and implementation of a childcare program for children whose parents are in lawful custody. The House therefore urges the government through the State Department for Social Protection and Senior Citizen Affairs to develop and implement a program for the care of children above the age of 4 years whose parents are under lawful custody. The Article 53 of the Constitution provides for the right of children, including the right to free and compulsory basic education. Section 22 of the Person Deprived of Liberty Act and the Child Care Policy also provides for the care of a child whose parent is deprived of liberty until the child is still required parental support, recognizing the majority of these children often suffer from emotional distress, social stigma, and economic hardship. All children should be accorded a means of maintaining their relationship, though the parents, not children, have restricted economic resources available for their support, which in turn negatively impacts their lives. The motion on the national policy on deworming of school-going children by Honorable Mashua Waithaka will also be considered. The House urges the national government through the Ministry of Health to develop a national policy on deworming of school-going children as a crucial part of mainstreaming the healthcare access in the country. Article 43(1)(a) of the Constitution provides that every person has a right to the highest attainable standard of health, including the right to healthcare services. The relationship between health and education plays a significant role in school attendance rates. It's a concern that the negative effects of poor sanitation, such as the parasite infestations, particularly among the school-going children, lead to diseases such as anemia, stunted growth, and other salient problems, which in turn leads to low school attendance and impact education standards. Also recognizing that according to research, school-based deworming is one of the most cost-effective interventions that provides a huge range of holistic and social benefits, such as increased social attendance, healthier kids who do better in school. The public health concerns at Langata Cemetery motion brought by Honorable Felix Odiwar, the Member of Parliament for Langata, is also among the motions that are going to be considered by the House today. And the House urges the national government through the Ministry of Health to urgently conduct an assessment of the public health risk posed by the continued usage of the Langata Cemetery, and to the institute mitigatory measures and collaborate with other stakeholders, including the Nairobi County government, to identify the sustainable and suitable alternative land for use as a cemetery. Article 42 of the Constitution provides for the right of every person to a clean and healthy environment. It's aware that Article 69 of the Constitution obligates the state to ensure sustainable utilization of environment and natural resources, including land. The fourth schedule to the Constitution assigns the national government the function of land planning, including the general principles of land planning and coordination of the planning by counties, as well as matters of health policy, recognizing that there is an ongoing public cry regarding the neglect of the Langata Public Cemetery. Also, Member of Parliament of Embakasi West, Honorable Mark Mwenje, has a motion on development and implementation of a program for the voluntary regularization of land occupied by squatters for a prescribed period. The House therefore resolves that the government develops and implements a policy for voluntary regularization of land occupied by squatters for a prescribed period, including the negotiation for financial settlements across the country to address the challenges facing the squatters. Lack of access to ownership of productive assets, in particularly to land, is one of the most serious sources of economic and social insecurity for Kenyans, aware that many communities, particularly in the rural income dwellers, the only way of accessing land is to put up dwellings that have been to take up the residence on land that is unfit for human habitation. The Bill of Rights in Chapter 4 of the Constitution guarantees every citizen the right to adequate housing and reasonable standards of sanitation. It notes that there are very many squatters who have settled on land that belongs to either absentee landlords, unadjudicated land, public land, or community land for long periods of time, with some disputed while others undisputed. It's a concern that the issue of land settlement in many urban areas, particularly in the formal settlements, has remained unresolved, with numerous persons remaining squatters. Also, the expansion of drug and sustained substance abuse rehabilitation centers motion brought by Honorable John Makali, where the House urges the government to institute intensive programs for the dissemination of information.
Order number 2.
The quorum having been achieved, I hand over to the Deputy Speaker and the plenaries of the House. My name is Angela Cheror.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 2nd August 2023, morning sitting. Number 1, submission of nominees to Balambala, Gatanga, and Nyeri Town constituency from the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board. Number 2, reports of the Auditor General and financial statement in respect of the following constituencies for the year ended 30th June 2022 and the certificates therein. A, Mumias East, B, Bomet East, C, Kibwezi East, D, Kibwezi West, E, Kisumu West, F, Webuye West, G, Kajiado South, H, Teso North, I, North Mugirango, J, Nyando, K, Bondo, L, Masinga, M, Navakholo, N, Matungu, O, Butere, P, Lurambi, Q, Quiseo, R, Tongeren, S, Mukureni, T, Kanduyi, U, Bumula, V, Nyatike, W, Rangwe, X, Lukuyani, Y, Nambale, and Z, Kandara. Madam Speaker, I submit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements. Order number 8, the Penal Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 56 of 2022. Second reading. Mover to reply.
Honorable David Gikaria, you may reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First of all, let me take this opportunity to thank members who had contributed to this very important amendment that tends to address some of the colonial laws that we are supposed to be looking into and removing them from our, after the 2010 Constitution, Honorable Speaker, we needed to clean up our penal code, which has very, very punitive colonial laws, which are, one, against our legislation, and two, are also against our Constitution, Honorable Speaker. I had an opportunity of going before JLAC, and JLAC also agreed with me over and above Section 182, which I was addressing to repeal. They also agreed that there are so many others within the penal code, and it needs to be looked at holistically. And maybe I would be asking the chair of JLAC, Mheshimiwa Murungara, to consider maybe as a committee amendment to be able to look at those very punitive laws that were, curtailing our people from doing business, from addressing their day-to-day issues and other very important. And I say this, Honorable Speaker, is that with the amendment and the so many contributions that the members did give, I totally agree with a few who had overlooked, particularly on matters to do with arms and begging in our streets. And it is true, Honorable Speaker, there are some people who are bringing beggars, even across the border, to come and beg in our streets, which, of course, was being deleted. But we also need to look at a more proper way of addressing beggars' issue. And I want to agree with the government. It has come up with very targeted measures to try and address the people living with disability. And it's also part of what I've also amending in the National Construction Authority to also address some of these issues where instead of people living with disability going to the streets to beg, then the government can be able to bring some other measures that they can be able to earn a living. Of course, we understand, but of course it has been said, disability is not inability. So there are other better ways of how people living with disability can be able. But most importantly, Honorable Speaker, is to agree with all the contributors of the amendment that where police take advantage of the penal code, that if they look at you and they suspect you look like you're going to commit a crime, then you're arrested, then this is something that the penal code the amendment was trying to address. So, Honorable Speaker, with those so many words, I beg to reply. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, I now put the question. The Penal Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 56 of 2022 be read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
The Penal Code Amendment Bill 2022, a bill for an act of parliament to amend the Penal Code. Order number 9, the Parliamentary Pensions Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 15 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Parliamentary Pensions Act. Order number 10, the Anti-Corruption and...
One moment first. I think we'll refer the bill to the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. Next order.
Order number 10, the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act.
The bill is hereby referred to the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. Next order.
Order number 11, motion. Introduction of comprehensive health education as a core subject in schools. Resumption of debate.
I think we had 15 minutes left on this particular debate. Who was the member? Before we proceed, then we acknowledge and welcome the following schools who are in the speakers gallery. Pangani Girls High School, Staherehe constituency, Nairobi County. And Katani DEB Secondary School from Mavoko constituency, Machakos County. You're welcome. The Honorable Julius Taituma, I think, had a balance of 7 minutes. I'm informed. Is he here? Okay. Is there a member who wants, if you press the intervention button, you may proceed. The Honorable Nimron Bai. Point of order, or you want to contribute to the debate? Okay, proceed.
This is on the comprehensive public health education for schools. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to this. Secondly, is to appreciate the Almighty God. Yesterday, things were not so good for me, but you know, the position that was under attack is not mine, is for my community. So I can't stand losing the position. I'll be cast. So I'll make my effort to be here and correct things. With all that, Madam Speaker, there's something I picked with the issue of health, especially in our schools. Madam Speaker, I represent a rural constituency, like most of us. And in the rural constituencies, Madam Speaker, you find girls, especially on reproductive health, getting pregnant at early stages. You go to secondary schools, you find our girls leaving school at the age of 14 years, 15 years when they are in Form 2, Form 3. And Madam Speaker, you don't find the same in the urban areas. And that does not mean girls in the rural areas engage more in the reproductive behavior than the girls in the urban areas. So whatever is taught in the urban areas for girls to be aware and alert and restrain from getting early pregnancies as part of health, Madam Speaker, I would encourage that it is also put under the curriculum for the girls in the rural, for the girl in the rural areas, Madam Speaker, to be aware about how to protect themselves and not waste their lives on early pregnancies, because we've lost brilliant minds, and these girls end up losing the whole of their life, because when you drop, within no time you have a second kid, a third kid, a fourth kid, and your peers in the urban areas are now at the university when you are a mother of 5 kids, Madam Speaker. I would want to add on the move of the motion to look into including reproductive health as part of the curriculum in this, and especially in the rural areas, Madam Speaker. And with that, I beg to support. Thank you.
The Honorable Beatrice Lachi, member for Dagoretti North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also want to thank the motion and to really appreciate that when we look at how things are moving, Madam Speaker, and to see how the country is moving, today you realize that we had our sons and daughters yesterday, Madam Speaker, and I know I talked about it, and I'm still talking about it because as a mother I'm wondering, where are we and why are we doing this? But having said that, Madam Speaker, we have to ask ourselves in this house, what has really made us come? What shall we be remembered with? Yesterday we were told, we as women, Madam Speaker, I think we are the ones now who have decided to take what used to be the men's way of doing things in Parliament. It was not a very kind thing, but we took it, and we appreciate that we have to change, Madam Speaker. I'm saying this because I am like taken aback, and I'm like, can we try ourselves now? Because we want to see women more in Parliament. We don't want that to become the main thing that we shall be remembered with in the 13th Parliament. So I'm hoping all of us will just reflect back and see how to deal with our own inner reflection and how to deal with everything that is happening. So, Madam Speaker, I know I was to speak on the motion, but I just felt there is need for me to just speak on this and to say that I think we are the leaders, we are a role model of many other Kenyans out there, and therefore we just need to think of how to go back to the roots that we were brought up with in terms of understanding and appreciating the rules of the House. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that on behalf of women, being a woman leader, I think we want to apologize to the Speaker on behalf of all, and also to request that even as we move forward, can we now move forward as a team and appreciate ourselves in this House as women? And we can disagree, but I think we don't need to go beyond that disagreeing. We can disagree. We are allowed to disagree. That's why it's a house of debate. And so, as we disagree, let us respect just one another and our opinions. We might have sharp opinions, but we don't need to go beyond. And we are praying to the Speaker that in that Hansard, because every time it will be remembered in the archives of the 13th Parliament that the Speaker spoke to us on his chair. And we are praying that will be the last the Speaker will ever tell us that again. So for me, I just want to say, as women leaders, let us just reflect and remember we must pass the 2/3 in this House, and it has to pass. And we don't want anything or anyone to use that as a word of saying, when we are many of us, we might be of not of agreeing. Lastly, Madam Speaker, I want to beg that this pathway that we normally, that is with Bunge Towers, to be opened so that when we are going to the committees, we can go through the pathway. Because all the roads the other side have been closed. So can they open the pathway for us so that we be crossing down and we just enter the Bunge Towers for that? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I'm assuming that the clerks have taken note of that, so that you can notify the clerk of the National Assembly. The Honorable, I think I'll give one more chance to the Honorable Dorothy Ikiara. Time is up. Let's just give her a minute since she's been there since morning. Thank you. You may proceed, Honorable Dorothy Ikiara.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand in support of this very important motion, and I want to thank Madam Honorable Njeri from Kirinyaga for bringing this very important topic in this House. Madam Speaker, I support this motion first by highlighting that children are like wet cement. Whatever you teach or show them, it sticks on them. Madam Speaker, I'm saying this in view of even the new curriculum, the competence-based curriculum, where children are more oriented to doing things for themselves as opposed to the yesteryears where the teacher was a know-it-all. Madam Speaker, I want to say this: comprehensive health education that should be a core subject in our schools. As I sit here today, Madam Speaker, the school curriculum is tailored towards having this particular topic in all the classes, all the grades across the schools, because hygiene and health are in the syllabus.
Just give her 2 minutes to complete her sentence, please.
Madam Speaker, I very, very quickly say health education is important because it covers the physical, mental, and social wellness of school learners. Schools are therefore the ideal setting for health programs. Madam Speaker, we are raising up a generation where thousands and thousands of our children are going to waste, and due simply because nobody is responsible in their wellness. Madam Speaker, I want to say the mental sexual habits, and other habits that affect the health status of a learner, the best place that they can be placed is in school. And the only way we can be able to do this, Madam Speaker, is by ensuring that comprehensive health education is taught as a core subject in our schools. Madam Speaker, I support this motion, and I want to say, if already it is in the syllabus, let it be enhanced, let the curriculum content be well tailored in such a way that it can be able to catch the needs and the rising needs of our children of today, more so on mental health, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I now call upon the mover to reply. You have 10 minutes to reply, but you can also donate the time to somebody else. Thank you. Yes, you've donated 2 minutes to Honorable Wanjiku. She may proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support this motion, but I want to put some information to the floor that time and again such a good debate has not seen the light of the day because of misconception of the ideas. A similar debate or a bill was in the Senate, I think in the 12th Parliament through Honorable Susan Kehika, the governor for Nakuru. A similar debate has been in Yala when I was in Yala 4 and even in Yala 3. It has never seen the day's light. And when you look at this comprehensive education, it's basically speaking on comprehensive, including social, mental, and other rights of awareness. But time and again, some members, not necessarily from Parliament, even outside, they have just picked one subject, like sex, and they have thought it is not good to teach sex to our students, and then the debate has fallen out of the way. So I want to pray that the members in this House have debated very well, and I hope it will go through, and I hope from the motion she will take it further. She can get ideas from the senators and the members previously who had similar debate, and we can have a comprehensive education on health awareness for our students. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You proceed, Honorable Member for Kirinyaga.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I see quite a number of members would have liked to contribute to this, but unfortunately, I also want to ensure that I highlight the issues that were raised when other members made their contributions. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank all members who took their time to give their very meaningful contributions on this floor in regard to this motion. Honorable Speaker, this motion was brought forth because of a program we ran in Kirinyaga County dubbed the Triple Threat Action. It was speaking to our children in the schools on matters to do with mental health, sexual and gender-based violence, Honorable Speaker, and drug and substance abuse, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, like my colleagues have said, it is very important that this topic is not lost in the noise of sex education only. The topic is comprehensive health education. And Honorable Speaker, the member for Langata asked how comprehensive is it? It is going to deal with issues of mental health, emphasis on social welfare. We have agreed that we are in the era of social media and our children need guidance. They have a teacher who is called social media. Social media does not care about the age. At the tap of a finger, our children can access harmful information if they're not guided in the right and structured manner, Honorable Speaker. They can be misled by that information. It is in regard to also our values, the rights of our children in regard to their bodies and our culture. It is also in regard to drug and substance abuse and developing healthy relationships, healthy eating behaviors, among others, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there were concerns raised about the age to which we would prefer this to be introduced at. Honorable Speaker, we have curriculum developers. They will ensure that anything that is packaged for our children is age appropriate. Honorable Speaker, the way you communicate or the way you package information for say a 7-year-old is not the way you package information for an 11 or 12-year-old or post-teen. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this will enhance retention in our schools by reducing teenage pregnancies. Honorable Speaker, this will empower our children on their rights and protect them from sexual exploitation. Honorable Speaker, we have seen and there has been an uproar on the social platforms in regard to exploitation of young children by even their grandfathers, Honorable Speaker. I remember in the recent week we had an issue from Moranga where a 2-year-old had been defiled by their grandfather, Honorable Speaker. And we must agree that at this era and age of information from all other sources, we need to ensure that it is regulated, Honorable Speaker. This motion will mitigate drug and substance abuse in our school-going children, Honorable Speaker. It will promote healthy relationships among them, Honorable Speaker. I know it has been a taboo for eons in regard to our parents talking to our children about how they can relate, the girl and the boy child. It does not have to be sexual, Honorable Speaker. That relationship can be healthy. They can benefit from each other, Honorable Speaker. They need to be guided because at the end of the day, they will grow into young adults and they will have, we know the natural order of things, Honorable Speaker, is that they will engage perhaps when the age is appropriate in a healthy relationship, Honorable Speaker. So we need to talk to them instead of burying our heads in the sand, Honorable Speaker, and trying to pretend, you know, back in the day, if my grandmother saw me with a boy, she would say, I don't want to see you with that boy. And I mean, there was no reason. There is no harm. I am seated to the member, Nimrod, and there is no harm in sitting next to him, Honorable Speaker. You know, a girl child does not get pregnant by sitting next to a boy child, Honorable Speaker. But we need to talk to them and tell them, if you engage in a sexual activity at this age, your education is going to derail. You might get sexually transmitted infections, Honorable Speaker. That is what my motion is about, Honorable Speaker. It will also minimize and promote mental health among our young people. We know that mental health is a major topic. We passed a law in the last parliament which was very robust, but we do not have the infrastructure to implement the same, Honorable Speaker. Let our children be told that, you know, life comes with its pressures, and those pressures do not mean that you should take action and maybe take your life or feel that you do not have the will to live anymore. And, Honorable Speaker, I beg to indulge members. I beg to ask them, let us look into the welfare of our children. Let us look beyond the sensational topics by the media on sex. It is not a motion to teach our children to practice sex, surely. I am an advocate of the High Court. I am minded of the welfare of our children and guided by the law. It will be within the law. There is no harm in talking to our children because at the end of the day, like I have said, they have another teacher. So the question I want to ask these members, will we give them the right teacher? The right teacher is in the schools, the right teacher that is within the law, that is guided, that will talk to them in regard to our culture and in respect of our societal values. Honorable Speaker, with those few remarks, I beg to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. We will defer the question to a later time. I think we can move to the next order.
Order number 12, motion, establishment of a National Cancer Prevention and Control Fund.
Honorable Timothy Toroitich, you may proceed. And maybe before you proceed, let me recognize the presence of Ilpori Primary School from Narok West constituency, Narok County. Welcome. Honorable Member, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to prosecute this very important motion. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that, aware that Article 43(1)(a) of the Constitution provides for the right of every person to access the highest attainable standard of health, which includes the right to health care services. Further, aware that cancer is among the leading causes of death in the country, noting that although the budgetary allocation for health care services is progressive, it is inadequate to cater for cancer prevention and care across the country. Further, noting that cancer control in the country is hampered by inadequate cancer care infrastructure and limited special human resource capacity, recognizing that a significant number of cancer patients do not complete the prescribed treatment due to high cost of cancer management. Further, recognizing that the Cancer Prevention and Control Act 2012 seeks to promote access to quality and affordable diagnostic and treatment services for persons with cancer, and to ensure sustainable capacity for the prevention and control of cancer, this House resolves that the government, through the National Treasury, establishes a National Cancer Prevention and Control Fund to promote prevention, control, and treatment of cancer in the country. Madam Speaker, cancer is a menace in this country. Cancer has killed so many people in this country. Cancer has orphaned so many children in this country. Madam Speaker, today, cancer is an equivalent of a death sentence in this country. Honorable Speaker, it should prick the conscience of this nation. It should prick the conscience of this Honorable House. Madam Speaker, it is time that this House takes deliberate and intentional mechanisms of sorting out the cancer menace in this country. Madam Speaker, many members here have been called to fundraisings when we attend several functions in our constituencies, majorly to fundraise for cancer. Madam Speaker, we have invested in so many things in this country. We have invested in agriculture. We have invested in education. We have invested in so many areas. Madam Speaker, there is a problem in terms of investment in cancer infrastructure in this country. Madam Speaker, the statistics are glaring. And I want to read out this House so that we get how nasty cancer has killed our people. Madam Speaker, according to International Agency for Research in Cancer, IARC, Global Can Report of 2018. Madam Speaker, in 2018, there were 47,887 cases, new cases annually of cancer in this country. And out of the 47,000 in 2018, the mortality rate of the 47,000 was 32,987. Honorable Speaker, that accounts to almost 90% of those new cases die out of cancer. Madam Speaker, that was in 2018. The current projection in this country is that almost 100,000 people die annually out of cancer in this country. Honorable Speaker, if you break down those statistics, it means if it is 90,000 per year, if it is 100,000 per year, then the mortality rate is 90,000 people die of cancer every year in this country. That means in every month we lose 7,500 people. Per day we lose 250 people in this country out of cancer. Per hour we lose 10 people in this country out of cancer. Madam Speaker, if that doesn't prick the conscience of these honorable members, if that doesn't prick the conscience of this country, if that doesn't prick the conscience of this government, then I don't know what does. Because losing 10 people per hour out of cancer in this country, Madam Speaker, that is a national tragedy. It is a national disaster of monumental proportions. Madam Speaker, we have a progressive legislation in this country, known as the Cancer Prevention and Control Act of 2012. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, that law, as established, is a skeleton. We need to give flesh to that particular skeleton of our legislation. Madam Speaker, the reason for that is the following. One is that that particular legislation creates a National Cancer Institute of Kenya, NCI, which is an equivalent of the US National Cancer Institute. But, Madam Speaker, it is only an agency or a parastatal, but it is only a toothless bulldog that cannot bite because it is micromanaged by the Ministry of Health. Madam Speaker, it will surprise you that if you Google and you check the website of NCI, Kenya, National Cancer Institute, they do not have statistics of cancer in Kenya in the year 2013. What they are relying on, Madam Speaker, are the statistics of International Agency for Research in Cancer that was done in 2018. As we speak, the current projects that I've given here are merely projections, but not founded through research by the National Cancer Institute of Kenya. So, Honorable Speaker, I also call upon the committee of this House that is in charge of health to critically invite that committee to appear before them. I mean, the institute, the NCI, the National Cancer Institute, the committee invites them to appear before their committee to be able to ascertain the issues that have been raised in the report. Madam Speaker, the gist of this motion is to establish a fund to promote, to prevent, to control, and to treat cancer. Madam Speaker, the traffic that is in JKIA of our people seeking treatment in India is very huge. And the reason is that as a country, we have not been able to provide adequate and a comprehensive health care for cancer. Madam Speaker, research has shown that if cancer is detected at an early stage, then it can be able to be treated. The problem is that cancer in Kenya is detected at the last stages, and therefore it makes it very difficult for it to be treated. And if, Madam Speaker, we can be able to pass this particular motion and create that particular fund, then it will mean that people who cannot be able to afford the treatment of cancer can be treated in this country using the fund. So, Honorable Speaker, I invite the conscience of this House. I invite the conscience of this government to consider taking seriously the issue of cancer in this country. Members here have lost their relatives. Members here are taking care of families that have lost their relatives out of cancer. So it is incumbent upon this House to consider creating this special fund, thereafter allocating its resources in subsequent financial years so that we can be able to wipe out or we can be able to manage cancer so that we can be able to assist our people get proper treatment. Madam Speaker, I beg to rest the prosecution of this motion, and I'm calling upon my good friend, Honorable Duncan Maina Madenge, popular known as DMM, the MP for Nyeri Town, to second this motion. Thank you.
Very well, the Honorable Madenge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to second the motion on the formation of the Cancer Fund. Madam Speaker, the funding in our health sector is inadequate despite several declarations that the Kenyan government is a signatory to, and especially the Abuja Declaration that requires us to put up to 15% of our national budget to health. Even more worrying is the fact that we are we are only at 7%, progressive as it may be. But even when we go to the national GDP, we find that only 2% of our GDP goes towards health funding. Madam Speaker, the cost of cancer treatment in Kenya, according to a research paper in 2018, assessing the direct medical costs of cancer care, revealed that the cost of cancer therapy varied with the type of cancer. Patients on chemotherapy alone require Kenya shillings 140,000, while those on treatment for surgery require 130,000 Kenya shillings. Those on radiotherapy require 120,000 shillings. However, you find that radiotherapy will take up to 10 sessions. Chemotherapy could take up to 15 sessions. Some patients who have a combination of the three treatments, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and surgery, require well above Kenya shillings 500,000. Another study in 2018 showed that the cost of treating stage 3 breast cancer and cervical cancer depended on the treatment followed, whether it was a curative or a palliative approach. The cost of cancer generally increased by stage. Madam Speaker, the public sector cost of treating stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 breast cancer ranges from Kenya shillings 190,000 to Kenya shillings 250,000. And the cost of cervical cancer ranges from Kenya shillings 120,000 to 250,000. Patients' payments in the private sector generally are 10 times more than the public sector costs. Palliative care for 6 months for cancer patients in the public sector will generally range up to 40,000 Kenya shillings, while in the private facilities, it is up to Kenya shillings 200,000. On the economic front, Madam Speaker, cancer is a growing problem. It is affecting the nuclear family, extended families, employers, and society, encountering financial loss from relevant disability, reduced quality of life, and premature death. It is estimated that up to 50% of patients with cancer do not seek services in this country due to lack of money. And even the majority of those who end up seeking cancer, which is up to 70%, do so late because they cannot raise the money needed for cancer treatment. By the time they have the money, it is already too late, with the disease having advanced to higher stages, which is even more costlier. Among those who seek services, Madam Speaker, their personal lifetime savings are completely exhausted. They turn to assets, eventually unsecured loans, and as a last resort, they have community fundraisings to finance their illness. Unfortunately, by that time, they are always almost on their deathbed. The indirect cost of cancer treatment, such as transport, accommodation, add to the financial toll. The higher cost of cancer drugs, coupled with the drug shortages, even when the finances are available, complicates matters for cancer patients and cancer care in our country. Madam Speaker, facilitated financial access to patients with cancer will increasingly most likely lead to earlier diagnosis and better outcomes, and reduce costs as opposed to the current state where up to 70% of cases access treatment late, requiring more elaborate investigations and much more expensive treatment options with poorer outcomes. Madam Speaker, a very high percentage of cervical cancer patients, and I'm hoping that the honorable ladies of this House will listen to these statistics. A high percentage of cervical cancer patients referred to radiotherapy do not access the treatment because they cannot afford it. Even those who do access the treatment do not undergo the entire treatment protocol because they cannot finance it. Multiple investigations, radiotherapy, chemotherapy are the main components of direct costs for cancer patients. Madam Speaker, cancer is causing a heavy economic burden with adverse social implications beyond the death of the cancer victims. Studies have demonstrated that orphans of cancer patients have a higher under 5 mortality rate in this country than those than other children. This has a considerable impact on communities. More broadly, the Cancer Fund will be an appropriate response to the achievement of SDG goal number 3.4, whose target is reducing premature mortality from non-communicable diseases such as cancer by 1/3 by 2030. Madam Speaker, in the year 2010, our then health minister and current Kisumu governor, the Honorable Anyang' Nyong'o, disclosed to the nation that he had prostate cancer and sought treatment in California, USA, at the Helen Diller Family Comprehensive Care Center and was treated by radiation. Madam Speaker, a year later, in 2011, the Honorable Beth Mogo, then Minister for Public Health and Sanitation, similarly revealed to the nation she had breast cancer and was treated in the USA, requiring both surgery and radiation. Madam Speaker, at this point, allow me to congratulate the Honorable Beth Mogo for starting the Beth Mogo Cancer Care Foundation, which assists patients with cancer and their families. Madam Speaker, in both these cases, these Kenyan VIPs must have received ex gratia payments to support their surgeries, having exhausted their insurance medical cover. Madam Speaker, without doubt, it is almost always possible that their cabinet colleagues raised money for their treatment to augment their financial and express their financial requirements and express financial solidarity. Madam Speaker, today I am asking this House to start with the ordinary Kenyans. Ordinary families, like the family of Julia Kevanya in Nyarugomo village, who is undergoing cancer treatment at KU Hospital, cancer of the spine. This girl, this single mother, who is jobless, could never have had any hope of accessing cancer if the local community has not fundraised for her 3 times in the last 1.5 years. Madam Speaker, I am urging this House to start with the family of Eric Mwangi Kimanga, who has throat cancer in Nyarugomo village. Again, last week, the community had to raise for him 700,000 to access treatment at either the Nakuru Cancer Center or Kenyatta University Hospital. These people, even before we talk about the cost of treatment, cannot afford the cost of the expensive diagnostic procedures that are required. Honorable Speaker, these examples are endless. Every member of parliament today in this House and those who will contribute to this motion have had to engage in similar fundraisings. Madam Speaker, in July 2022, the National Cancer Task Force recommended that we activate the Cancer Fund. And therefore, our motion, Madam Speaker, comes to give weight and support the various policies and legislations that will contribute towards enhanced and effective cancer care in this country. Madam Speaker, 3 decades ago, our forefathers had the foresight of setting the Kenya Hospital Authority Trust Fund that today has 1.7 billion shillings lying with the Unclaimed Assets Authority, a fund meant for health care that could finance the setting up of cancer care, comprehensive cancer care centers of excellence.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, for seconding the motion. You did not go on record to second the motion, so I'll give you an opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I submit and second this motion.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I now propose the question that aware that Article 42(1)(a) of the Constitution provides the right of every person to access the highest attainable standard of health, which includes the right to healthcare services. Further aware that cancer is among the leading causes of death in the country, noting that although the budgetary allocation for healthcare services is progressive, it is inadequate to cater for cancer prevention and care across the country. Further, noting that cancer control in the country is hampered by inadequate cancer care infrastructure and limited specialized human resource capacity. Recognizing that a significant number of cancer patients do not complete the prescribed treatment due to high cost of cancer management, further recognizing that Cancer Prevention and Control Act 2012 seeks to promote access to quality and affordable diagnostic and treatment services for persons with cancer, and to ensure sustainable capacity for prevention and control of cancer, this House resolves that the government, through the National Treasury, establishes a National Cancer Prevention and Control Fund to promote prevention, control, and treatment of cancer in the country. Honorable members, now we start the debate. We are not going to put the question. We are going to start debate, and honorable members, the first opportunity goes to my boss, the Honorable Boss, member for Uasin Gishu County.
Thank you. Hold on. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to be able to lend my voice in this very important motion. Honorable members, I actually got off the Speaker's chair because this is a topic that is very close to my heart. I know that the motion by Honorable Timothy Toroitich is requesting the House to resolve that the government, through the National Treasury, establishes a National Cancer Prevention and Control Fund to promote the prevention and control and treatment of cancer in the country. Honorable members, I wish to bring your attention to the fact that in the last parliament, in the 12th parliament, I brought a petition to this House. In that petition, I was seeking to, for Parliament, or for the National Assembly, to order the Pest Products, the Pest Control Products Board to remove 267 pesticides off the market in this country. Those pesticides have been confirmed in Europe, in the US, and the UK to cause cancer. In fact, more than 20 years ago, a farmer in the US was paid $250 million for developing cancer as a result of using a pesticide that was commonly known as Roundup. But that pesticide continues to be sold in Kenya today. Reason being, the Pest Products Control Board in Kenya is in bed with the agrochemical companies. I am not ashamed to say that they continue to support that trade. In that petition that I brought to Parliament, I had over 10 professors in Kenya who helped me undertake the research. And when we undertook the research, all we said is if Europe, America, and the UK have removed those products from their market on account that it causes cancer, why do we allow it in our country? In fact, the law in the US and the UK allows the companies that are producing or manufacturing those pesticides to be able, they are allowed to manufacture it for export, not for use in their own country, for export to a country that permits it, or in fact, to put it even more clearly, for a country that is stupid enough to accept products that cause cancer. And Kenya is one of those countries. And the people who have the mandate under the law is the Pest Products Control Board. That petition, I brought it to this parliament. It was approved by the parliamentary committee. Unfortunately, the parliamentary committee made a decision that they ordered the Pest Products Control Board to take measures to remove them off the market. So far, out of the 267 products that I requested be removed from the shelf, 7 have been removed. In a period of 4 years, they've only removed 7. I had the opportunity that I visited the board myself to their offices, and I went to a meeting there. I demanded to see the CEO. And when I asked the CEO, why have you not removed this from the market? She said, we want to undertake further research. So I asked her, what research can you undertake that has not been undertaken by those other first world countries? I asked them that the cases in Kenya usually, for example, when it was world science and the research in peer-reviewed medical journals found that hormone replacement therapy was causing breast cancer and ovarian cancer, our gynecologists in Kenya did not do further research. They simply stopped prescribing the medicine, and the chemists stopped stocking them in the shelf. When world science in peer-reviewed medical journals said that certain cough syrups were damaging our children's lungs, the pediatricians did not do further research. They simply stopped prescribing it,